Thanks to everyone for being here with Martha and me this morning. And this is our first Zoom class. And we wanted it to be free because we're going to make some mistakes and we want your input on what you liked, what you didn't like. You took too many breaks, you didn't take enough. Just your response. It doesn't have to be across the board. Uh, and so let me tell you a little bit about what I hope to. I'm trying to keep this as close to my workshop classes as I can. And so basically, I'm going to talk to you a little bit. We're going to have a lesson on color harmony. I think we'll be able to do that in about 45 minutes. We'll take a little break. And then I'll do a painting demo for you of a church in Antigua, Guatemala. We'll take a little break and finish up with any questions that you may have. So before I start the lesson on color harmony, I want to introduce my brain. Martha, come in, please. Yeah, this is our first, so we're a little edgy, and just come sit right beside me, darling. Here's my beautiful wife, Martha.
Hello, everybody. A couple of things. Again, this is Don's right. This is our first Zoom that we're running ourselves, and we are learning as we go. You can use either chat or the question and answer to ask questions. I will try to keep up with typing answers. And what was the other thing I was going to say? I mean, this really is kind of nerve-wracking, but I guess we'll get it.
It'll come to you.
Yeah, it'll come to me. I can type it to you, but anyway, I am in the other room. So Don has to kind of let me know when it's time to zoom in on a painting or switch cameras. So just bear with us. Yeah. And we do appreciate y'all being here. Thanks so much.
Okay. Very good, darling. You're not going to do the demo? Okay. I'm going to want to switch to the painting in just a second. I wanted to start this lesson on color harmony. I see so many students having problems with color and obviously identifying the sky is blue, the trees are green, the barn is red, but there's no harmony. There's no sense of belonging together in the colors in a painting. And actually, this is wonderfully, wonderfully simple. And once you see the demo, you'll understand it completely, and it will solve a significant problem that I see in paintings as I used to travel around the country. So, Martha, if you go ahead and switch to the board, to the painting. This is a painting I did a few weeks ago, I guess, and pretty well pleased with it. It's what we would describe as a colorful painting, I believe. But if you look at the reds, yellows, blues, violets in there, they are harmonious. They belong together for a very logical reason. And that's what I want to talk to you about before we get to the practical demonstration. One of the things I've found that people need to address is having a palette. These little field palettes are wonderful to carry around when you're out in the field or on location. But what you need is a lot of mixing area. And I always like to quote my teacher, Robert E. Wood, who said, limit the colors in your painting, a limited palette but mix like crazy. And that's the key here. We don't want to, it almost sounds detrimental that when we use the term limited palette, but a limited palette is wonderfully unlimited. I'm going to start off here with the red, yellow, and blue, the primary colors. I'm going to pick a light one and a dark one. So this blue that I'm selecting here is cerulean blue, a light, cool blue. Then I'm going to pick, for the yellow, I'm going to pick aureolin. And for the red, I'm picking a warm red. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. But these are our three light primaries here, red, yellow, and blue. Then we're not going to use them right away, but I'm selecting for my dark blue, Prussian blue. This is a painting with a lot of greens in it, and Prussian blue is very nice to mix green. So I'm going to just set them over here for right now and make them perhaps a little bit smaller. Prussian for my dark blue. Magenta for my dark red. And burnt sienna for my dark yellow. And obviously burnt sienna is not really yellow, it's more of a brown, but there's no such thing as a dark yellow. So that earth tone is about as close as we can get. Clean up very quickly. I also have, besides having a palette with a large mixing area, I also have a couple of these mixing butcher trays, and you can get them. They're very inexpensive. I think I paid $12 or $15 at Cheap Joe's, and I'm sure the other catalogs carry them as well. But it's so easy, since I don't know if y'all can see it properly or not, but this is Aurelian, our yellow, and this is Prussian blue, our dark blue. And I can just come out here very quickly and mix these two together. And just that fast, we get several varieties of a green. And so I like greens, the secondary colors of greens, oranges, and violets, but I don't have any on my palette because I'm mixing my secondaries, and that's a key. So we're coming in and we're going to start with cerulean blue here. About a 50-50 mixture of cerulean blue and aureolin. These two guys give us this. And into that, I'm going to add more cerulean blue. And we get a cooler green like that. And one more time, more cerulean into the mixture. And we get a cooler, well, I'll just put it over here like that, a cooler green like that. These three greens.
Don?
Yes.
Excuse me, people want to know which red that is.
Oh, thank you. Forgive me, everyone. Now this is, it just depends on the brand, but this is a hot red. It's a very nice hot red. It's American, all of these paints, all of my paints are American Journey paints. And this is called Red Hot Mama. It's Scarlet Lake in other brands. So Scarlet Lake, Red Hot Mama. It's just a nice, light, very warm red. So we mixed these three greens with these two colors. And now I'm going to come over and add more aureolin to the mixture. And we get a little warmer green. And now I'm adding more aureolin to the mixture. And we're getting an even warmer green. And one more time, So all of these greens are made by these. We could think of these two as parents. All of these are children made from these two parents. Now, let me clean up. I'm sorry, it takes a little time, but now I'm going to take these two guys, our Aurelian again, and I'll try to make a 50-50 mixture here. And so Red Hot Mama and Aurelian give us about a 50-50 mixture, give us this orange. And same thing, I'm going to add more Aurelian, however you prefer to say it. And we get that mixture and a little bit more Red Hot Mama. Gives us, didn't really change it much. Let me hit it a little harder. Gives us that. And then I'm adding more Aurelian to the mixture. Gives us a little warmer orange. More Aurelian. Gives us a little warmer orange. And one more time. We'll put it here. All of these are made with these two parents. But the wonderful thing about it, and it really is wonderful, all of these oranges belong to, are harmonious with all of these greens because they have a parent in common. All of these greens and oranges are made with areola. Now, here comes the first caveat. And it is one. Our third secondary is violet. And we're going to make a violet with cerulean blue and Red Hot Mama. And what we find is, instead of getting a beautiful violet, the paint neutralizes what we call mud or neutrality. These two should have made violet, but instead they made this neutral here. Now, this is the caveat. You and I, all of us, were taught there are three primary colors. And if we mix the three primary colors together, we get secondary colors. Every single one of us was taught somewhere along the way, red and blue make violet. And as you can see, that's certainly not the case here. And it's for a logical reason. It is the truth that this magenta over here is true red. Magenta is true red. I recommend everybody have a tube of magenta. But in order to make lighter reds, they're taking magenta and adding yellow to it. So yellow and magenta make a very warm red. If we come in here, I didn't finish the explanation. The reason this neutralizes is that what we're doing is mixing all three of these pigments together. Anytime you mix three primaries together, you're going to get neutral. And so what happens is I'm trying to mix a violet by mixing a red and a blue, but this red Hot Mama, is loaded with the third primary in order to make it warm and light. So that if we take this red and want to make it warm and light, we're adding yellow to it. Lighter reds are warmer. Darker reds tend to be cooler. And so If I want a violet, I can't mix a warm red, a hot red. What I'm doing now is I'm coming over to my magenta, which is a true red. And I hope I explained that enough anyway. Then I mix magenta with my cerulean blue. And instead of getting a neutral, we get a nice, beautiful violet there. You and I were taught, all of us were taught red and blue make violet, but it's not exactly right. It depends on which red we're using. Red is usually the culprit here, because if you're mixing a lighter red to get violet, you're probably adding yellow, which is the complement. Here, I'm adding more cerulean blue, and we get a grapish color here, and a little more cerulean blue as well. And it is a bit cooler as well. Then if I add more magenta to this, we get a warmer violet, and more magenta to this. Oh, that's a lot of magenta. Magenta is pretty strong, so you don't need a lot of it there. One more time, let me just lighten that up a little bit, and we go to here. So now, if we look at the colors that we've used, that we've mixed, every color on the page has something in common with every other color on the page. And that's the idea. These aren't just beautiful colors. They're harmonious colors. They belong together because they have something in common. In the painting that we just showed, and maybe I'll pull it back up here without telling Martha, but this, I hope you would say, was a colorful painting. But this painting, as most of my paintings, are only painted with 6 or 7 colors, and that way we can create a colorful painting. This page is very nicely colorful, but there's harmony in the color. We haven't even come close to exhausting these light colors, but I want to move on to the darker colors and kind of keep us on track in terms of our time, so we can get on to the demonstration. So here we're going to come in and we're going to use Prussian blue, and we're going to mix Prussian blue with magenta, and we'll get a darker. Have to kind of be careful with Prussian blue because it goes real dark real fast, but a darker violet in here, and a little more magenta, and it's a darker violet as well. And one more time. Now I'm using magenta because, as I said, the painting that we are going to paint using this theory has a lot of foliage in it. And so Prussian is great for foliage. If you look over here, as I mix these two together, I'm mixing mostly yellow here with a little bit of Prussian. Oh, I should have made the 50% first, I guess. And so here we're coming in and getting a middle value green, I guess. More yellow being added gives us a warmer green. And more blue being added gives us a darker green. And more blue again, a darker green. Let me just add more of that in there. Darker green again. Okay, so now we're going to move over and use magenta with our aureolin, and we get, gosh, these are the most beautiful, earthy, boy, if I lived out in New Mexico or Arizona, I would have a big tube of magenta and a big tube of aureolin to make. They're almost burnt sienna, beautiful, earthy colors, warm colors. And into that, I'm going to add a little more magenta, a little darker magenta. Where will it go? And we'll put it here. And one more time, I'm just going to add magenta to the mixture, and we get something like this. Then we can begin to intermix. That didn't change it much. Okay, now let me show you this very quickly. And you'll see me do this in the demo. We get to painting neutrals and tertiary colors. What we're doing is we're neutralizing, we're making grays. Actually, I should, let me do that first. I'm gonna mix some beautiful grays here by intermixing those three colors: cerulean blue, aureolin, and red hot mama. And I'll get it right in the middle here. We get a gorgeous gray that, let me lighten it just a bit. If we come into this puddle and just add more cerulean to it, we get a beautiful blue gray. And more cerulean to it, and we get a nice cool gray. Did that change it a little bit? Let's do it one more time. Beautiful, beautiful grays. And the wonderful thing about it is all of these grays are made with these colors, so they automatically belong in the painting. If we take a little more red hot mama and put in the mixture, we make a gray that is a warmer gray.
Hey, Don?
Yes.
Excuse me. Some of the really dark colors don't show the color that well on the screen. So Jerry Aslin is here, and she had asked if we might be able to, if you might be able to sort of do a little bit diluted when you do the really, really dark colors so that they can see,
Right.
you know, because some of them look a little bit on the almost black side.
I see. Well,
When you get a chance, if you get a chance.
yeah, you know, that is so typical. Jerry's been in several of our classes traveling, and it's so typical of her to be complaining all the time. So that's something I'm very used to. Hey, Jerry, I'm just kidding. Okay, I'm using the same grace, but I'm watering it down, and I understand what you're saying. So these are a little lighter and most absolutely beautiful grays. And the same thing with our warm grays. I'm mixing, just adding water to it so it makes a warm gray. And we're going to use some of this in our painting demonstration in just a few minutes. Okay, that brings us to tertiary colors. What we're doing is we're making neutral to begin with. Here we're mixing red, yellow, and blue kind of equally until we get to gray. And I'm going to add water to it to lighten the gray. But we should, by mixing those three colors, we get pretty much to a neutral. But now I'm adding more cerulean to the mixture. And what happens is, these are called tertiary colors. I don't like that word, but nobody asks me. So what we get now, I'll put it right beside it, is a very blue gray or cool gray. Very useful in clouds and things like that. And then we could add more cerulean. You get the idea. And we get an even cooler gray. And now we come in and we put Red Hot Mama into the mixture. And we get a red gray. Oh, that was too much. We'll put it over here. A red gray. Actually, thank you, Jerry. These do probably show up a little bit better. And so now I'm going to add more. You know, I used to do a demo that also relates to this. These are colors that we generally in watercolor call mud. And if we just use the same mud, the same mixture of mud, truly it does make the painting appear neutral or muddy. But if we begin to vary the mixtures of the mud, these are absolutely beautiful, beautiful neutrals. And I see lots of watercolor artists who build most, if not all, but most of their painting with these neutral colors. Now, here's the thing. We could keep going doing this. For instance, if we wanted a neutral green, we'll just mix blue and yellow into the mixture. And it gives us, I don't know if that's going to be enough that's a little bit of a hint of green there, but if we add more blue, more yellow, please be greenish. You are. This is infinite. Think about the possibilities. Then it could be 4 parts red, 1 part yellow, 1 part blue. 5 parts blue, you get it. It really is wonderfully infinite. But very simple. All of these colors are made with a family of primary colors. And as long as we utilize this concept, it's wonderful that it takes the problem of a lack of harmony off the table for us, and it frees us up to worry about all the other things that we have to worry about while we're painting. Now, but let me do this one more little part of the lesson, and then we'll take a break while I switch over to the practical demonstration. Okay, so we are walking down in the Bahamas or in Mexico on the beach, and it's early in the morning, and we see that little beam of turquoise in the far water, that beautiful clear turquoise. And oh, we've just got to have that color in our painting. And do you see how harmonious all of these colors are? But when I put this there, look at how this kind of shouts at us. It says, I don't belong. I'm not part of the group. Even though it's beautiful in and of itself, it's kind of like a choir boy with a beautiful voice, but he's on the wrong page. It doesn't belong, but I want that in my painting. So how can we make that color belong? You know how. We come in and we add some cerulean blue to the mixture, and it begins to relate a little bit better. And we take and we add more cerulean blue, and it relates a little bit better. And we take and add some aurelian or aureolin to it, and it begins to have some relationship, some sense of belonging with the rest of the painting, because we're inviting it into the family, so to speak. We're giving it more of a sense of belonging. We'll take and add what, turquoise, and a little magenta, and it begins to, it's a neutral there, but it's the right neutral. These greens are the right greens in the painting. These grays are the right grays in the painting, because every one of them has something in common with another player. Does that make sense? Concept. I saw this many years ago. I was so fortunate. I was a young guy when I took a workshop with Robert E. Wood. He's a marvelous painter. The colors in his paintings would just make your heart ache. But he gave us a similar demonstration, and I'll always remember. I want to repeat it before I let it go, so we can move on. But he said, he asked the class, is a limited palette limited? And as you can see, it's not even close to being limited. And we've made all of this in a short period of time. We could continue. Is a limited palette limited? And then he said, limit your palette, limit your colors. 3 light, 3 dark is generally the process, but it doesn't have to be. But 3 light primary, 3 dark primary, and mix like crazy, and mix like crazy. That's the key. Watch yourself, notice, and get onto yourself. If you're just hitting the same mixture over and over again, put one of the primaries into the mixture you have, and it will change it from being this red to that red or orange, to this orange. I want to get as many varieties as I possibly can into our painting. And the more we do, the more colorful the painting is, but all of the colors in the painting are harmonious. All right, what we're going to do now is take about a 5-7 minute break. Let's make it 7 minutes. We got to load up the coffee. I got to get the drawing on the page, and we will utilize this concept in a painting demonstration.
Hey, Don.
Yes.
Before you go, a couple of things. Somebody asked about pointing out what your colors are on your palette. So when we get back, I can zoom in on the palette, and you can tell everyone what colors you have in your palette.
Okay, I'll be glad.
And someone else was asking, how do you decide? Sometimes you miss the, sometimes you mix warm and cool, and sometimes you mix warm and cool. And they wanted to know how you decided when to mix warm with cool for your neutrals.
That's okay. Both are good questions. Let me just take a little break, and I'll catch. Well, we need to move on. Let me answer them now. Okay. So I should be able to answer these in just a minute or so each. So everybody bear with me. I'll drink some cold coffee. Ooh, it is cold. Okay, honey, it wasn't Jerry who asked those questions, was it?
No. Don't make her feel bad for asking questions, Don.
Okay. Why didn't you use manganese instead of cerulean, or cobalt instead of cerulean? why did you use Prussian blue here instead of ultramarine blue? Well, so many times it doesn't really matter. But if I'm doing a painting that I know in advance is going to have a lot of foliage, a lot of greens, I generally will use Prussian blue with I used Areola here, but I could have used any of my yellows. This is Gamboge, and this is lemon. All of those make beautiful greens with any yellow with Prussian blue. So I usually don't start off with too much Prussian blue. I can always add more, but this is Gamboge, which is an earthier yellow. It makes beautiful. And if we come in, we mix that together. See, that makes a beautiful earthy green there. We could have used that, or we could have used lemon yellow here. It wasn't the yellow that I decided upon. It was the blue. I used Prussian specifically because it makes so many beautiful greens. And this is also a painting where I knew in advance I wasn't going to use or have many violets. Now I can have some because I'm going to use magenta and I'm going to use the blue. So I can mix these violets if I want them. I'll do it just to show you. But if I really was doing, I like violets. If I was doing a painting where I wanted a lot of beautiful violets, instead of picking the hot red, Red Hot Mama, I would have picked the cool red which is opera or fuchsia. This is just a wonderful color to mix with any blues really, but it's cerulean blue, and it goes to the most beautiful, beautiful violets. I knew in advance I wasn't going to use many violets. I have enough to work with. But had I been doing, I don't know, something else, and knowing I wanted to make violets, I could have opted for the fuchsia as opposed to the Red Hot Mama. Does that make sense, everybody?
Also, could you just tell them what colors you have on your palette before you take a break?
Okay, I will. Okay, we'll start with the blues. And these are all of these paints are American Journey, Cheap Joe's brand. You'll know most of them, but in some brands, they have different names. So this is, well, I'll start with Andrew's Turquoise. I wonder why I started there. This is manganese. And by the way, while we're at it, notice that I set up my paint in a row from lighter to darker. That's like a piano keyboard. And that just it helps me in terms of value as to where my brush is hitting down the line. So I also recommend setting your paint up from light to dark in the primary colors. Okay, that was manganese, cerulean, cobalt, ultramarine blue. This is called Joe's Blue, an American Journey. Every brand has this color. It is actually true blue. It is in Winsor Newton, they call it Windsor Blue. It's beautiful, very transparent. It's a stainer. And every brand has this, but every brand has a different name for it. Winsor Newton is Windsor Blue. In Holbein paint, it's Peacock Blue. In in Grumbacher, it is phthalo blue. Every brand, and it's actually true blue. And then I have Prussian. I also have black. I like black. I use it as an accent. I find if I just use a little bit of it and touch it into, it makes a nice accentuation. And so I use black. I used to make it with burnt sienna and ultramarine, but now I just have it there. On the red side, I've got Red Hot Mama, which I use a lot. This is called Fire Engine Red. I hardly ever use this because it's so similar. It's just a darker value of Red Hot Mama. This is Fuchsia or Opera, that hot pink. And then I just took Alizarin Crimson off my palette because a magenta with just a touch of I'm having a COVID crisis. Of ultramarine will give you alizarin crimson. On the yellow side, this is Naples yellow, lemon yellow, which is actually true yellow. The true primaries in watercolor, as close as we can get, lemon yellow, magenta, and Joe's blue or phthalo blue or Windsor blue. Those three. You could paint a lifetime with just those three colors, truly. It's just, it takes time to mix. So it just depends on your direction here. Gamboge, raw sienna, I don't use much, but I have it here. And burnt sienna, I don't use much because we can mix those neutrals or those earth tones with other colors, but I do have them for convenience. I might also say, boy, I use ultramarine blue and burnt sienna together. And if you have more burnt sienna in it, you get Jerry won't like that. Well, that's about a neutral gray. And if I add more burnt sienna to it, it becomes a warm gray. And if I add more ultramarine to it, we get a nice cooler gray. So lots of ways to go about making those neutrals. I'm doing it less though because I'm going this way. This is just automatically says these grays will belong in my painting. Okay, everybody, I'm going to take a little break and get out, and we'll talk about the photograph and answer any questions you may have. And I'll be right back. Our subject is this wonderful little church. It was not too far from our hotel in Antigua, Guatemala. Somebody told me it looked like the Alamo, and I guess it kind of does, but it's a beautiful structure. And that's going to be the subject for our painting. Obviously, and this is an afternoon shot, the light is placed beautifully on the church, and very pleased with that. Like some of these, I guess they're windows, and the foliage that we have. Notice the sky is a middle value blue, so that shows off the light on the church, and that is working very well. This is a very nice tree. It overlaps in front of the church. That works well. It makes it more three-dimensional. I like the tree trunks down here. They play against the dark. They work fairly well, but I do not like this little teeny foliage that you can hardly see up there. It needs to be filled out, and I'm just going to make up some foliage and make sure that the foliage gets in front of the church a little bit, for the same reason that anytime you overlap things, they become more three-dimensional. And so rather than having the tree by or beside the building, we're putting it in front of, which it was. And the same will be true here. This is kind of a gimme that the best light is placed, but best light and dark are placed on the main character. So that's working beautifully well. But before we start, I always want to go through the photograph and not just point out the things I like, but also point out the things I don't like. I don't, and they're subjective, I guess, and you may agree or disagree with my likes and dislikes. One of the things, everything in this painting is going to lead us to this nice doorway, entryway. When we get there, all of this is in shadow. The tree is creating a shadow here that kind of flattens the doorway out. Almost, I just always find it much more enjoyable to open the door and have a little light in there, so it says that, you know, something's going on inside there. I don't like this fence in here. It's a brick or some kind of mason fence that is real lost in shadow. We've got two figures here. They're both painters in my class, and they're very nice people, but they're not in the right place. Figures are never in the right place in a photograph. And so, and we could make them painters. It might be a good thing, but we are placing figures where we want them to be in the painting. Okay, now the first part is very important, but very boring to watch. The first thing I'm going to do is I want this to be a wet into wet start. So I'm getting the page wet. And when I want you to notice, I use a big brush and I really work the water into the paper, and I put 2 or 3 layers or passages of water on here. I don't want this to be dripping wet, but I'm working the water into the paper. This is 140 arches cold press, so it accepts the water fairly nicely. This is my 2-inch Robert Simmons synthetic sable, and I like the Robert Simmons. I also have and I'll be using this a lot. This is the American Journey. This is a 1/2 inch, and I'll be using that. I'm sorry, it's 3/4 inch. This is a 1/2 inch, and then I'll be using, this is a Winsor Newton 1-inch flat. Great brush. You can get them most anywhere. They last forever, and it just holds that beautiful snappy point, beveled edge there. So that, and then I'm going to use a few of my pointed brushes. I use Robert Simmons there, the copper colored handle, and then I use the American Journey, all synthetics. Synthetics have a lot of snap to them, and that's why I like them. They're great for softening edges. As I normally do, I'm kind of just coming in. I go around the page. I know this is not not the most exciting part of the painting, but if I want to have some soft edges in the beginning, in the old days, and I don't know why I do these things. Forever I would start on a dry piece of paper, and if I wanted soft edges, I would just go in and use a brush to soften the edge with clean water. And now I'm kind of enjoying starting on a very just a damp page, and in just a short period of time, the page will dry and we'll be able to get hard edges where we want them to be. I can't say that enough. Now, other people do this same idea or concept, but they have different practices. Some people wet both sides of the paper, as I'm doing here, and that will make it stay wetter longer. So if you like the wet into wet approach, and you might try it that way. I have seen a couple of videos of Frank Webb, who's a master painter, and he wets it down like this. He gets it really wet, and then he takes a rolled up towel, like a bathing towel, and runs it across. He rolls it so he's not damaging the paper, and it just takes the excess water out of it. But I'm just working it in like this, and now I'll be able to kind of comfortably start on this wet page. Okay, so I'm going to use the same colors that we used in the demo before. Aurelian yellow, Red Hot Mama. Every time I do that, I get too much. And you see, this is a beautiful orangish color, but it's a little too pure, a little too clean, I guess, for lack of a better word. So I want it to be a tertiary orange. I'm coming in and just touching in a little bit of cerulean blue into that, and that takes it off of being just a secondary color. So it's just a little more neutralized here. Now, this is hard to explain as well. Don't paint the drawing on the first go around. I'm painting through things. I'm not trying to capture things with the first application. I I don't know why this is true, but it seems like it always works better if we let this be abstracted. I'm trying to balance. I know where the lights are going to be, but I'm trying to balance them here, and keep them happening in this area behind the figures. We don't need them to be there. So this is an abstracted passage of saved whites with light washes here. And I'm making sure not to just paint the drawing. I'm painting across the drawing, except where I want to save them as the figures here. Now that being done, I'm coming in and I don't know why I do these things either, but I want to have some flowers in here, and I'm just kind of counterbalancing on the page a few areas where there will be some kind of flowers. I need a little bit of very delicate green there. So look how easily I can mix that delicate green and place in there. I'm not trying to control it too much. That's for the next stage. I'm just placing the colors around the page, and then I'll come in and just have a couple of notes of a little strong. This was just right from the tube, Red Hot Mama, just touching into it a time or two. We may use these, we may not, but it gives us that option there. Everything's blending, soft edge, that's good. Let me bring that down just a little bit farther. And I need a cool gray, cerulean blue, and let me put a little magenta into that. That was too much. There we go. We'll start this off. And then maybe let it go a different gray. I'm putting that Red Hot Mama in there so that it's gonna blend a little bit as it goes up. And let's let it go cooler down in here. Trying to create some negative spaces in here. Well, I've got this, and this is my practice. Well, I've got this color here. I'll come in and select some of that placement of that figure, of that color on one of the figures. And we'll just okay. Now our greens, this is the reason I use the Prussian. I don't know if y'all can see, but I've got Prussian over here. I'm mixing a couple of passages. I'm checking to see this is a little bit drying on me. And so it's certainly okay. I'll just come back and wet down this area of the painting. You don't have to wet everything. And I'm going to go ahead and wet this down again. It dries pretty fast under these lights, and I'm okay with that, but you just have to stop and dry them. I'm sorry, and re-wet them a time or two. And I'm not too, this is just the beginning of the tree. So I just want to give it a feeling of foliage, where the foliage is going to be. And then let it go a different green by adding cerulean to it. We'll come in and find just a little magenta, and we'll touch into that a time or two. That's not the violet I'm trying to mix. That's better. And so it's blending. I'm come in, put it out a time or two here. Same thing, same green. We'll bring it in up here to start with. Just let it be the first indication of foliage. Oh. And it's running away a little bit. If you're not used to painting wet into wet, that's going to throw you a bit at first. But the whole key to this is that the page is damp. It's not soaking wet. It's not running away. And you'll just have to practice a time or two. I just find that when I work it into the page, that kind of keeps the page damp, but it doesn't just run away as it's trying to do here. I always quote my teacher. I can hear him. I'd ask him so many questions. Bob, how do you know when it's this, or how do you know when it's that? I almost touched into that vial there. His answer was always the same, or almost always the same. Watch the page, Don. The answer is on the page. And so that's what I'm trying to do here is react to what's going on. For instance, I just found 2 or 3 little white edges here that might work well as a light on the flowers. And so I'm going to see if I can save them and take advantage of that. And I might be able to, and I might not be able to. Take this, and we're just going to just hint at where a shadow goes across the building there. And while that's drying, I'm going to just come in and touch into the beginning of some of the windows. This is dry now, so it's holding its shape. When I get to the figures, I'll carve them out with negative space. I know this gray will work because it's utilized in other parts of the painting. I'm going to take that and these 2 colors and mix them together and let that be the beginning. It's a little bit different than the wall. That's fine. I wanted that. But it will belong in the painting. Okay, we're going to maybe come in and diffuse or soften a few edges so they're not quite so cut out down here. Soften a few. And this will be the first pass of the opening. What I do, and this is very effective, and I talked to a young lady named Robin yesterday, or day before. And Robin, when you had that door, you had it closed. I'm opening the door and I'm just coming in and finding some little beginning of an, oop, cut his head off. Don't want that. I know that doesn't make sense to you now, and then I'm softening an edge or 2, but you'll see in probably an hour, but you'll see. And I'm just coming in putting other colors into that I've already got in the painting someplace. Okay, and we'll find maybe green, a little flesh tone. Oh, another thing I do, I wanted to show you, is I'm about to paint the figures, heads and arms and all. This is called well, in here, this is called top lighting. I'm going to soften an edge there. Just getting them wet in advance. And because I want the flesh to be warmer, I'm just coming in and touching a little bit of cool into the flesh. Don't have to do it in all of them. And then I'm coming in trying to save a little bit of that flesh where I've got it. And the little accent of, ooh, oh, he's got a ball cap on. No, I don't want a ball cap. These are the first washes. Don't want them to get too cut out here. So I'm just starting with a few different colors, letting them kind of blend together. I kind of like to just let them evolve a bit as the painting progresses. If one's warmer, the one next is cooler. And a different mixture for this one. Just the beginnings of our figures. And I also want to come and touch in, soften up a time or two so they're not looking quite so cut out. And I also think of in terms of complementary colors. If the green top, I'll just come in and bring in a little bit of warm into that, and that creates a vitality in the pigment. So a lot of the complementary colors, and the same with the lighter and darker colors. We're coming in and placing something lighter and then something darker. I'm trying to get onto myself. Keep finding different answers. Don't just repeat the same color over and over again. And while we've got that now, we can bring this in here. Let me touch to this a time or two. Okay. The green is softly changes into a blue, violet to a warm. I'm going to find these things as much as I can, not by painting the tree limbs and the tree trunks, but by painting negative shape. I'm going to paint between the limbs. So what's left will be the limbs. The same in the flowers, the same there. So I know for sure our sky is dry. I'm going to re-wet this. I probably will paint the sky 2 or 3 times to get it the right value. The skies, one day I want to do a demo on sky paintings. It's something I've been doing a lot of skyscapes here lately. But here the sky is very much a background player. And I'm just going to use this cerulean blue, and I'll just neutralize it a bit by putting some of that in there, whatever that is. And we'll come in with the lightest wash of the, and I'm expecting this to be a value or two darker, but we're starting lighter and then we ease off of it and darken it as we feel necessary. The whole job of the sky is to show off the light on the church. Not quite as wet as I thought I had it. And maybe I'll try just putting a little bit of a gray tone in there. And see how that does. Now that we've gotten the light in my classes, in my new 5.5-hour video that you're going to love, we're placing the lightest lights, the darkest darks, in, on, and around the center of attention. Okay. I kind of check to see these things are still damp, and I want to find some harder edges now, so I'm searching for some drier areas, mixing that warm neutral and this is another thing that I want to. When you have an overhang, let me hit it harder. When you have an overhang, that overhang generally is most effective if it is warmer, or at least has some warmth in it. The reason for that is the light hits the floor and bounces up. So if anything is an overhang, it will catch warmth in the top. So I'm coming back here and just touching in a bit more warm there. And it usually reads pretty well. While I've got that, I'll come in, wet down a time or two, and just bring in a few accents, a little stronger hint of foliage. And then, do you notice that I jump around a lot when I paint? For a reason. When I have the color on my brush, I try to counterbalance on the page. The blue that's in this violet is the same blue that is in the top of the page. I'm letting this be warmer and then allow that to go a little bit cooler there. Don't think the door is dark enough. I'm going to come in and just darken it a little bit. Some of that Prussian leaked across it. Always happens. And while we've got that in here, let's just a bit hard-edged, but I'm all right with that. We may have to soften these at some point, but that's all right. Oh, give me a different color, Don. Oh, another thing we can do. Let me just get that a bit darker there. Another thing we can do is come in, textural things. We come in and bring in some color, and we take a fingernail or a palette knife, and come in and just pull some lights out of it, and that will give the impression of fabric. There we go. All right. I think this is dry. It is. So we can at least begin to hint at some of the structure there. I don't know if the sky is dry, and it's still a little damp. I'll save that. So we just come in. Now we begin to paint the drawing. I don't know if y'all can see the drawing, but I can. And this begins to give us a little in the way of structure here. Because it's dry, all of these shapes are very cut out. So once I'm not sure how much I want to emphasize them. I kind of want to sneak up on that. So I'm just kind of letting them blend away and not find them entirely yet. Soften an edge or two occasionally. Let's see. Negative space and soften that a little bit. Just these little, I'm taking, I don't want to use, boy, the worst thing you could do is come in with a loaded brush of water. Notice when I paint, I always have tissues in my other hand, and it's there specifically to get the water out. So it's just a damp brush. And that's what we come in and soften with, just nibbling at the edge there. Okay. Same thing. Don't want it to be quite so cut out. There we go. All right. I don't know. I make up terms all the time. I call this sneaking up on the painting. I'm bouncing around the page, painting, gradually moving darker down the value scale. And we'll just let this blend out. a little decoration. Don't want to go too busy with it. Okay, that's enough of that for now. Let's work on the trees. No, excuse me, I need to blow my nose. All right, we're going to start off with a nice green here. Now this is foliage. When I put this green down on the page, let me show you this. When you're painting foliage, I don't know that this is always true, but I find it to be mostly true anyway. This is just Aurelian and Prussian. And that makes for a beautiful green if we were painting a dress, for instance. While we're doing it, why don't we? But that is too pure, I guess, for foliage. So what I find is if I take the complement, a red, or it doesn't have to be burnt sienna, any of these colors that warm, that when we mix those into the foliage, that begins to make a more natural green. So instead of that, here, let me lighten it up before Jerry gets on to me. So this makes for a more natural green foliage. Okay. I wanted those trees nice and dark. I'm mixing burnt sienna. I don't know if y'all can see a lot of burnt sienna here. I want it quite dark. And even I'm going to add a little bit of magenta to that to neutralize it just a bit more. And it's dried, so it's real cut out. That's okay. We're going to soften them up a little bit once we get the shape built. Oh, the sky still hasn't dried. It's softening up. That might be a good thing, though. If it turns out, then I'll say I did it on purpose. We have two bulldogs. They're not shy about letting you know. So we're going to negative shape in the trees here. I'm not painting the tree trunks. Let me use that violet in here. I'm painting around them, and what's left is the tree trunk. Tom, are you out there? THOM, Tom? We talked about that. The utilizing the negative space to find as much as we can, as much as we can. Finding the flowers, not by painting them, but by painting around them. Trying to find every way possible to find different mixtures, different colors with these 6 colors. Don't want too much interest over here on the side. We're in the red zone. So we just let that go down. Do you need those 2 little dots there? They're beautiful, but they'll pull the eye over there. So they have to go. Too fussy, too fast. Okay, so look at the difference between this tree and this one. We are letting the colors blend, and that's called granulation. We'll certainly have a lesson on that. So you get these mingled colors that really are just what watercolor is all about. And now, in the photograph, I really didn't care for that tree. The foliage in that tree. So we're just changing it completely. And we're just going to come in and say, that's where the foliage is. And we're asking, and then that's it. We're not trying to explain everything to the viewer. I would come in and let that go. The strong cool there. And maybe a nice violet as well. Keep getting onto yourself. You know, but now find another answer. I kind of like that color. I'm going to lose that green, except on the edges. And finding the limbs, not by painting them. Well, you painted that one, but painting around them. Nice and dark. I'm just going to reach in here with just Prussian blue and touch that in a time or two. I like that little shape there, but my eye goes to it a bit too much. Okay. We'll let that come down pretty dark there. And then we'll have it cooler in here. Let's find another answer, a little green into that cool. I don't even know what I'm going to get when I mix this. There's some kind of green there, very earthy green. But we mix it and put that in a time or two. Okay. Where the trunks are in shadow, I'm mixing a cool here. That really should be dry before I do that. I'll use it somewhere else. Okay, we'll let this dry. I've got a hair dryer. I try not to use hair dryer in demonstration because it's, you know, one of the 2 or 3 worst sounds on the planet. I want this to be a bit softer, so I'm just coming in and pre-wetting that. Maybe get it a little bit wetter. And is that too wet? Thicken up that paint. Is that too busy or is it okay? Sure. Some green. And we neutralize it a bit. Uh-oh. Now what? It's all blending together there. Now, it's too level, isn't it? Oh. Let me redo that. It's wet, so it should come off reasonably well. And now let's get it wet. And we'll just strengthen that color so that it doesn't blend quite so much. That's better. That's better. What is that, Don? I don't need those little beautiful light greens. Let's put some blue in there and make that go. That's better. And when it works on one side, I come in, let's do it again. I kind of like that. I don't want to get too involved there, here. This is working well, but a little too hard edged, a little too much. And actually, I could go ahead and pull a cool gray, this tertiary color for the shadow. We don't want these to be There we go. Let all of that just blend together. And now I wanted, let me get a little brush to have some speckled light there. Negative shape. And all that cool, I then come in and stick just a touch of warm in there. And why don't we let her come on down here and let that shadow tie her to the ground. When you're painting figures, always tie them to the ground with shadows, nice, big, strong shadows. Oh, I wanted that small brush. There it is. Painting the hints of the tile. Don't want to paint them all, but little hints of the speckled light of the tile. Let her. Just making some hint and then get rid of most of it. Don't want too much down there. Keep that foreground nice and calm. Don't want the viewer caught in the foreground. We talk a lot about that in my new video on design. Did I happen to mention that I have a new video on design? And one of the things we talk about there is the foreground. It has a job to do. Its job is to lead the viewer to the interest, not be the interest. A nice violet down here. I don't know if that's too much. I like those little negative shapes. But sometimes, as Martha can tell you, I can love it till I love it to death. I want them to blend away, not be so important. Down here in the corner of the painting, let's just let that all blend together. See, look how that one little light just is beautiful, but it's too beautiful. It demands too much attention. Softening an edge or two, edge, let that blend away while the paint's wet. You know, I get involved in all of this and I forget that there are people out there. And I don't have not even a clue what time it is, but it's time for me to give people a chance to get up for a minute. That's one of the things I've realized very quickly in Zooming is you can't concentrate, but for a certain amount of time. So we've got more to do. I always like that on it, and it cleans up the edges. We're getting there though, but there we go. I don't want to, you know, little things. Yeah. Why don't we take a nice 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and finish her up. We'll talk a bit more. All right, 10 minutes. Okay. And now, I think this is a better value. Maybe it is blending a bit too much, but better too much than not enough. And I'm going to do the same thing over here, and just let it go down the value scale. These are supporting casts, certainly. And even though I like them, I don't want them to take over and have too much attention. This also is a little hard-edged in here. Why don't you do that, Don? So we come in and just blend it a little bit, soften it a little bit. Try to get rid of those little holes of light that busy everything up. Get to the, no, I want to get to the grill work. The grill work was not in the photograph, Martha. If in the doorway. The doorway is a dominant area of the painting, and so I want to jazz it up. And I didn't speak about that as much as I should have in our. I look for when we go to a location, it will have many areas of interest, lots of good things that invite us to oh geez, I can't paint talk. Okay, Don, what are you trying to say? The subject matter always has some things of interest, but then it won't have everything. One of the things I really love about Central American countries is the beautiful things they do with iron and wrought iron and clay and all of these things. And so I try to incorporate them. It is part of the joy of being in those Latin countries. Is what those wonderful pots and the wonderful wrought iron railings and all of those things, and chandeliers, my goodness. And then we look at the doorway in the church that we're painting now, and it's not there. It's kind of bland. So I give myself permission to jazz up and add to things that I like, that I think are indicative of the subject, that didn't happen to be there this time. Kind of making a hint of an abstraction. I'm about to go darker, but I don't want to go darker in here all at once. And now, darker still. Just jabbing it in there, letting it blend, jabbing it in there. When nice and dark, I might even put a little bit of black in there. This is a good place for the black to be. I've heard people say don't use black, but we make such a big deal over the light. Why not have a little black in there as well? I don't know. Everybody's different. Okay. This is now that I put those darks in here, the ironwork is standing out a little bit too much. And what I mean there is that I didn't hit that first gray strong enough. There was the same problem on the door, but I darkened the door, but I didn't darken the wrought iron there. So I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll just bring another gray wash across it. Just jamming it in. Well, we've got it there. Just let that couple of notes of dark. This is black again. Okay. And we'll just come in. Find a little hat on one. Try to give as much variety as I can here. The light shirt works, the light dress works, a little bit pure. I'm just coming in with kind of dirty water and taking that off of white just a little bit. I like to just play around with the textures on the dresses and things like that. And we'll do the same thing. How can we make that different? We'll do it this way and this way. There we go. And also pre-wet, get it damp, and then bring the strong pigment to it, and then let it blend a little bit. Let it blend just a little. Uh-oh. Door's getting bigger. Come on. Oh, geez. Painting. Why do we do it? There we go. Now I have to just make the arch come out a little bit more. Is that a good idea? Maybe a little less. Maybe a little less. And while we've got the dark there, let's want to have the strongest darks pointing to the subject. Actually, now I love this about watercolor when it works out. I'm over here doing the painting, and while I'm doing that, this is blended kind of out of focus and just hints of change. And that's so much better than I could have ever done. But I get the credit for it. And I really like that. And people say, how did you do that? And I'll just say, I've been practicing that. Okay. Now, I need to let these figures also melt into the steps with shadows. All right. I keep looking at this guy. I'm saying, what is a color I haven't used? I guess I could say dark green. I don't want it to be the same as this, but and I don't want, oh, I don't want them to have the same color on this, what I'm trying to get at. I'll just stick a little, oh my goodness, poor fella. That hat's starting to bug me too. Let me just tilt it a little bit. And then there we go. Okay. Is that dried here? No, it's still wet. Okay. We're not too far away, everybody. I want to firm up. Try to match these up as best I can. See how that warm reflected light works pretty well there. I like that. Just gonna bring these a little darker. Some hints of whatnot. Softening a few edges. Let's see, quite a bit darker on top here, and I'm going to hit that warmer as well, right in here and in here. Don't want that's a hint of a light there. Maybe we'll throw just a hint of the shadow on the wall. How much detail? I never know. But the good thing is if you get too much up here, you can always, I could take it out right now and also soften it up. So All right, let me make a gray, a cooler gray. And just to make sure, I'm going to just hit that. And we'll just ease it down, ease it down, ease it down. Okay. Now we can put some darks in there. You think it's dark until you put something even darker in it. It's not dark anymore. Okay, now let me soften that up a little bit. And why don't we see what a yellow will do in there? Play around with it. And if we don't like it, we get rid of it. But let's just drop it in there and see. Do we like that? I'm going to say I do. I'm not sure. Just the right amount. Boy, this must be boring to look at all these little picky things, but they do help. He's got a long arm, but and what in the world is that, huh? No. Well, just looking for few darker areas in the supporting characters. The best darks I want to be here. I like this, but it's too hard edged and too demanding over here in the corner. This probably is too. I am getting very close to finish, and I have no idea what time it is. I know that some of you have questions, and I want to save a few minutes for that. Is that enough detail on this? Never know. I'm going to put a mat on it, and that always finishes it a little better. I like to say, I don't know who invented mats, but we should build a shrine to them. I've never put a mat on a painting that it didn't look better. Okay, let me step back and look. There must be some way to mess this up. I can usually find it. Just a little bit more. What is it I want to do there? They have columns and columns. I want to show her off of just a little more. I'll darken this. These little changes that happen at the end, little adjustments that happen at the end. It doesn't just fall off the brush. These little tickles. She only has one leg, poor thing. Let him be in shadow there. I'm considering just darkening the sky a little bit more, and I'm trying to talk myself out of it. What I'm getting at, I guess, is I want to have a little more contrast. Maybe this darkening this will give us that. And actually, it kind of does. It's better to be lucky than good. Yeah, and maybe this something here. Let's show that off just a little bit more. I like that little window there. Look at my photograph, and it has this little wet it down, then just touch into it. Let that run down. Let that run down. And perhaps we can just have a little note on the bottom as well. All right, everybody, I have no idea what time it is, but I feel pretty good about the painting. The light, do you see how the light's working well in the dominant area of the painting? The figures seem to be working well. And so, hang on. Let me just get an overhang right there. Ah. I'm going to say that I've never done a painting where I couldn't always find something else to do. But I feel pretty good about it. So I'm going to say, let's take a 5-minute break, and then we will, I don't know how these questions are going to be asked or whether I'm going to be able to hear them, or I don't know. But let's take a 5-minute break. And
Don?
yes.
I just wanted to say that if I've noticed that some people have raised their hand in the participants list. And if they do, then I believe I can unmute them for question and answer after the break.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.